Ladies and gentlemen, pain is one of the greatest tools in God's hands. When you were betrayed, when they turned their backs on you, when you cried yourself to sleep, God was not absent. He was watching. He was orchestrating. He allowed it because destiny is never birthed in comfort. God wanted them to hurt you. You see, the greatest enemy of purpose is comfort. When you are comfortable, you settle. When you are satisfied, you stop growing. But when they hurt you, they awaken something inside you. Pain is not a sign of abandonment. It is a sign of preparation. Pain is never without purpose. It is the invisible hand of destiny shaping the soul, preparing it for what the eyes cannot yet see. The most dangerous place to be in life is comfort, because comfort breeds complacency, and complacency suffocates growth. The moment you feel pain, it is a divine signal that something is being birthed inside you. Purpose is never delivered in ease. It is extracted through struggle. Diamonds are not formed in the open air, where they are admired, but in the depths of the earth, under crushing pressure. The oil that anoints kings does not flow freely. It is pressed from the olive, crushed beyond recognition. The gold that shines does not come from the surface. It endures fire before it is ever placed in the hands of the wealthy. Everything that has value must go through a process. There is no greatness without suffering, no true success without sacrifice, and no anointing without crushing. The greatest mistake people make is assuming that pain is a sign that something is wrong. It is not. Pain is a sign that something is being transformed. The greater the call, the greater the process. No one rises to a place of true influence without first enduring a wilderness. The wilderness is where identity is forged, where self is stripped away, and where purpose is revealed. It is not a place of punishment, but a place of preparation. Every person chosen for something great must endure something painful. Joseph was thrown into a pit before he could sit in a palace. David was anointed as king but had to hide in caves before he could sit on a throne. Moses was called to deliver a nation but spent 40 years in isolation before he was given authority. The greater the destiny, the more intense the preparation. Pain is not an accident. It is intentional. It is divine. It is strategic. It is the tool that chisels character, sharpens vision, and refines purpose. Without it, potential remains buried, gifts remain dormant, and power remains untapped. Pain isolates, but in isolation there is revelation. The voices of the crowd fade, the distractions disappear, and suddenly the whisper of God becomes clear. Pain strips away the unnecessary. It removes false security. It dismantles ego. It forces dependence on God alone. That is why the greatest leaders are not those who have had an easy road, but those who have walked through fire and emerged refined. The scars of struggle become the evidence of preparation. The wounds of betrayal become the testimony of resilience. The tears of suffering become the seeds of wisdom. Pain is never wasted. It is never without purpose. It does not come to destroy, but to develop. It does not come to break, but to build. The question is not whether pain will come. The question is whether you will let it prepare you. Because pain, when embraced with understanding, does not weaken, it empowers. And those who endure it with faith will rise with power no man can deny. Rejection is never the end of a thing. It is the beginning of something greater. It is the hand of God moving unseen, shifting you away from what was never meant to sustain you and pointing you toward what was always destined to be yours. The problem is not rejection itself. The problem is how you perceive it. Too often, people see rejection as a sign that they are unworthy, unwanted, or forgotten, when in reality, it is the clearest evidence that there is something higher, something greater, something beyond what you could have imagined. Rejection is not abandonment, it is redirection. Every person who has ever walked in purpose has first walked through rejection. Joseph was rejected by his brothers, but their rejection was his transportation to the palace. David was rejected by his own father, left in the field while others were considered for kingship, but that rejection positioned him for divine selection. Even Jesus was rejected, despised by men, but that rejection fulfilled prophecy and led to the salvation of the world. If rejection was part of their journey, why should it not be part of yours? Every door that closes is a divine message. This is not where you belong. Every betrayal is a divine instruction. This is not your final destination. Rejection only feels painful because you were attached to something God never intended to be permanent. It is not the rejection itself that wounds. It is the expectation you placed on something temporary. People cry over lost relationships, broken friendships, closed opportunities, but they fail to see that what they are mourning is not loss, it is divine redirection. The rejection was an answer you did not know you needed. The denial was a rescue in disguise. What you thought was a failure was actually deliverance. Had they accepted you, you would have settled. Had they included you, you would have remained small. But rejection was the catalyst that forced you to move. There is nothing more dangerous than being comfortable in the wrong place. Rejection is the force that pushes you out of where you do not belong. It separates you from people who cannot walk with you into your destiny. It detaches you from relationships that would have kept you stagnant. It removes you from places that would have limited your growth. It is painful, yes, but it is necessary. There are doors you would have never left on your own, so God allowed rejection to close them for you. There are people you would have never walked away from, so God let them walk away from you. There are places you would have never abandoned, so God used rejection to move you forward. The pain of rejection is temporary, but the purpose behind it is eternal. What is denied now will make sense later. What hurts today will be the testimony tomorrow. What seems unfair is actually divine strategy. Do not fight the rejection, embrace the redirection. Because where you are going is far greater than where you have been. Enemies are never an accident. They are not interruptions to your destiny. They are instruments in the hands of God, sharpening you, shaping you, and pushing you into purpose. The greatest mistake people make is assuming that enemies exist to destroy them, when in reality, enemies exist to reveal them. Without opposition, there is no elevation. Without resistance, there is no strength. Without betrayal, there is no preparation. Every enemy assigned to your life has a divine purpose, and their role is critical in taking you to the next level. Joseph's brothers thought they were burying him, but they were planting him. Their hatred was not an obstacle, it was a vehicle. If they had not thrown him into the pit, he would have never entered the palace. If they had not sold him into slavery, he would have never become a ruler. What they meant for harm was the very thing that positioned him for greatness. Enemies think they are working against you, but they are unknowingly working for you. The ones who betrayed you, lied about you, and tried to pull you down are the same ones who pushed you forward. Without them, you would have never left where you were. David would have remained a shepherd if there was no Goliath. A giant was necessary to reveal a king. Goliath was not an enemy, he was an instrument. His threats were an announcement that David's time had come. The enemies in your life are not blocking your destiny, they are exposing it. Every attack, every insult, every opposition is a divine strategy to move you from where you are to where you are supposed to be. The throne was already David's, but it took an enemy to introduce him to the world. Judas was necessary. Without Judas, there would be no cross. Without the cross, there would be no resurrection. And without the resurrection, there would be no redemption. Judas was not just a betrayer. He was an instrument in fulfilling the greatest purpose of all time. The ones who hurt you, the ones who plotted against you, the ones who smiled in your face but stabbed you in the back were never a mistake. They were a part of the process. Enemies are proof that something greater is coming. The higher you go, the more opposition you will face. Enemies reveal your capacity. They test your endurance. They refine your character. They teach you patience, humility, and strength. The worst thing you can do is waste energy fighting them, hating them, or seeking revenge. That is not your battle. Your focus should not be on stopping them, but on outgrowing them. They were never meant to break you. They were meant to build you. Every great person in history had enemies, and their enemies were the reason they rose. Do not despise them. Do not fear them. Let them do their work. Because when they think they are destroying you, they are only accelerating your destiny. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It is about you. It is not about whether they deserve it. It is about whether you deserve to be free. The greatest prison is not made of bars and steel. It is made of anger, bitterness, and resentment. Holding on to what they did, replaying the pain, rehearsing the betrayal, and carrying the weight of the wound does not imprison them. It imprisons you. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is power. It is the ability to release what was meant to break you and walk into what was meant to make you. It is not an emotion. It is a decision. And that decision determines whether you remain a prisoner of the past or step into the freedom of your future. Pain is real, and betrayal cuts deep. The ones closest to you can wound you in ways no enemy ever could. But the weight of the pain is not in what they did. It is in the grip you have on it. The longer you hold it, the heavier it becomes. The more you dwell on it, the more it consumes you. And slowly, without realizing it, you become chained to the very thing you were meant to overcome. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks that chain. It does not erase what happened, but it releases its power over you. It does not justify their actions, but it stops their actions from controlling you. There is no greatness without forgiveness. No leader, no visionary, no person of true influence has ever risen without learning the power of releasing offense. Joseph forgave the brothers who sold him into slavery. David forgave the king who tried to kill him. Jesus forgave the very ones who nailed him to the cross. Forgiveness is not for those who are weak. It is for those who are strong enough to move forward. It is the ability to say, what you did hurt me, but I refuse to be defined by it. I refuse to be bound by it. I refuse to allow it to shape my future. Bitterness is a poison that does not kill the other person, it kills you. It clouds your vision, taints your perspective, and blocks your blessings. You cannot receive with closed hands, and you cannot move forward while holding on to the past. The reason some people struggle to walk into their destiny is not because they lack ability, but because they are carrying too much weight. The past was never meant to be a prison. It was meant to be a lesson. And until you release it, it will keep you stuck in a place you were meant to outgrow. Forgiveness does not mean you allow them back into your life. It does not mean you ignore wisdom or forget the lesson. It simply means you refuse to let what they did control you any longer. You walk away not in weakness, but in strength. Because the one who forgives is not the one who loses. They are the one who wins. And the moment you let go, you step into the freedom that was always meant to be yours. Pain is never without purpose. It is not a mistake, not an accident, and not a sign that you are forgotten. It is the soil where greatness is planted, the fire where strength is forged, and the process through which destiny is revealed. Every person who has ever achieved anything significant has had to walk through seasons of suffering, moments of brokenness, and nights of unbearable pain. It is not the absence of struggle that makes a person great. It is their ability to endure, to grow, and to rise in the midst of it. Pain does not come to destroy, it comes to refine. It is the evidence that something greater is being prepared inside of you. A seed cannot grow unless it is buried. It is placed in darkness, covered by the weight of the soil, and left in a place where no one can see its process. But deep beneath the surface, something is happening. The pressure is activating the life inside it. The roots begin to stretch. The stem begins to push. And the process of transformation begins. Without the burial, there is no growth. Without the crushing, there is no oil. Without the fire, there is no gold. And without pain, there is no greatness. Those who try to avoid suffering, who run from hardship, who resist the process, also forfeit the greatness that pain was meant to produce. Every leader, every innovator, every visionary has scars that tell a story. The betrayal that forced them to grow, the rejection that pushed them forward, the heartbreak that deepened their wisdom, the opposition that strengthened their resilience. Pain is not an enemy, it is an instructor. It teaches what comfort never could. It teaches what ease would never allow. It forces transformation, awakens hidden potential, and separates those who are willing to endure from those who give up too soon. Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and falsely imprisoned. But every painful step was a necessary part of his journey to the palace. David was hunted, rejected, and forced to hide in caves. But those years in hiding made him the king he was destined to be. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he ever led a nation. Jesus was ridiculed, beaten, and crucified. But his suffering became the pathway to salvation. The road to greatness has always been paved with suffering, because pain is the process through which strength is born. Some people experience pain and allow it to break them. Others experience pain and allow it to build them. The difference is not in the suffering itself, but in the response to it. Those who embrace the process, who refuse to quit, who endure the crushing, emerge stronger, wiser, and more powerful than they ever imagined. The suffering of today is not worthy to be compared to the glory that is coming. The pain is not punishment, it is preparation. And those who refuse to give up will look back one day and realize that every tear, every trial, and every hardship was birthing something far greater than they ever knew. The greatest tragedy in life is not failure. It is being trapped by the past. Too many people live bound by what was, unable to embrace what is ahead. They define themselves by their past mistakes, their past pain, their past disappointments, and they fail to realize that the future waiting for them is far greater than anything they have left behind. The past is a lesson, not a prison. It is not meant to hold you, it is meant to teach you. It's deep. But if you continue looking back, you will never move forward. If you keep holding on to what was, you will never step into what could be. The future is calling, but it requires letting go. No one rises by staying in the past. No one achieves greatness by living in yesterday. Every great person had a past they had to leave behind. Joseph had to let go of betrayal. David had to move past rejection. Moses had to move beyond failure. Even Jesus did not allow what was behind him to stop what was ahead of him. Every person who has ever walked into destiny had to make a decision. What is coming is greater than what has been. Regret is a heavy weight. It ties people to a version of themselves that no longer exists. It reminds them of what they lost, what they failed at, what they suffered, and it blinds them to what is still possible. The past is unchangeable, but the future is unwritten. The mistake you made is over, but the lesson remains. The pain you endured has passed, but the strength it gave you is still there. The opportunity you lost is gone, but new doors are waiting to be opened. The only thing standing between where you are and where you are meant to be is the decision to stop looking back. A runner never wins a race by looking behind. A driver never reaches a destination by staring in the rearview mirror. The only way to move forward is to focus on what is ahead. Too many people are waiting for permission to step into their future when the only permission they need is their own decision to let go. The chains of the past are only as strong as your refusal to break them. The guilt, the shame, the disappointment, the fear, all of it loses power the moment you decide that your past does not define you. What happened may have shaped you, but it does not determine your destiny. Your future is calling, and it is bigger than your past. It holds opportunities you have never seen, blessings you have never imagined, and doors you never knew existed. But you will never reach it if you keep holding on to yesterday. The only thing that can stop you from stepping into the life that was meant for you is the belief that what is behind you is greater than what is ahead. But the truth is, the best is yet to come.